Hi there, welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be talking about the 12 volt system that I've installed on the boat. I'm doing this because somebody asked me on the last set of videos that I did I do the electronics box? And yes I did. So I thought, well, here's an opportunity just to, whilst the boat's in the garage, let's show you a little bit around how that is actually set up. So we'll run through how I've set this up, what the thought processes were behind that, why I've done it in the way that I have done it. I wanted to keep it simple, I wanted to keep it neat, I wanted it to be well protected in these conduit tubes and in the waterproof box from any ingress from salt water. So I wanted to make myself as reliable a system as I possibly could. By way of a disclaimer, I'm not a marine engineer, I'm not a marine electrician. I've done this on a DIY basis, so this is how I've set it up. It's just the way I've done it, but it works for me. And when they fitted the outboard engine and looked at it, they said it was a good job. So I take it from that it's okay and safe. When I bought the boat, it was a complete bare boat. There were no electrics on it whatsoever. It meant there were no holes in the dashboard here, or what you might call the steering console. So I was starting from a clean sheet. I'd noticed that many of the YouTubers that were restoring boats and doing boats up for fishing, one of the first things they actually did was say, well, I need to rip out all the switchgear, I need to rewire it, and it often looked quite a mess behind their wheel as to how it was actually wired up. I like neat wiring, so I wanted to start afresh and have my design put in. I also had the thought that I may want to expand things in the future, and if I had such a junction box like this, if I felt the need to add more things or ran out of space, I could buy a bigger box and refit the whole thing and still only have a few holes actually where this is mounted onto the console here. The approach I had was to keep as much as I could in a waterproof box, and the conduit cables, everything's out of the way of the saltwater environment. This particular box I believe is IP66, which allows for water to be sprayed on it, low pressure. You can also buy an IP67 box which looks exactly the same but is submersible. So I don't really need a submersible box. I think by then it's curtains, isn't it? I know you'll want to see inside this box, so we'll take the screws off and you can see how I've wired things up inside. We'll do that in a minute or two. The basic layout of things that I've got on the boat is that the battery is at the front of the boat. The reason for it being at the front is that, well, pragmatic, there's no space at the back. If it did go at the back, usually that's where all the water goes when you're starting to get up on the plane, so the battery's then in the wet. I prefer it to be up the front here, and it usually stays pretty dry up here, and it's in a waterproof box anyway. The other thing about it being at the back, if you're going to get any sparks or anything like that, the last thing you want is a battery next to the fuel cans at the back there. I don't think it creates too much of a problem for weight distribution. I have an anchor in the front and a second anchor here, so there's a little bit of weight up front anyway, but you then have got the outboard at the back. It doesn't feel like it's pushing bows down at all. So I'm happy enough with the weight of the battery at the front here. I've not gone for a huge battery, it's a 65 amp hour battery, because it doesn't take an awful lot to turn over the 20 horsepower, and I don't have a lot of domestic consumption to power either. So what a single 65 amp hour battery works just fine for me. Up at the front of Real Time, I've got the battery in a battery box. With this battery, and it's not too heavy, it's a 65 amp hour battery. It sits nicely right up the front, and I've put a runner in, fiberglass runner in the floor, which I'll show you in a minute, and it means that it's held up at the front of the boat. The other thing I'll just point out is that I have one of these fly leads on, and that is for the battery charger. Once the battery in its box is strapped up the front there, it's far easier just to plug into the fly lead to do your trickle charge over a period of time.
and I tend to put it on trickle charge about once a month just to make sure that it's kept well topped up. So that's 65 amp hours, and that starts my 20 horsepower Tohatsu quite okay. I don't have any bother with that. So as you can see, it's all strapped in. I need to improve that strap, it's looking a bit raggy. The two heavy duty black cables there go to the outboard at the back of the boat. The positive side of that runs through my on-off switch here, and that is got the main cables going in for all the domestics as well as the outboard positive side. So everything goes through a switch. At the back of my junction box you'll see I've got the conduit pipes and everything going through grommets just to keep things as waterproof as I possibly can. So that's the battery box and the main isolator switch, the on-off switch, which cuts everything, and whenever I leave the boat I turn that off. All of the cabling that I put on this boat is the marine tinned cable. Is more expensive, but it is more resistant to salt water, petrol, diesel, that sort of thing. The last thing we want really is anything to start corroding and then cause us a problem when we're out at sea. So I've gone for the more expensive cable. From the isolator switch I've got a positive and a negative coming into the back of this box into a buzz bar. So let's just have a look at that and see what we've got inside. But first, the switches across here each have a little indicator. We can turn things on and off, so we can just have an anchor light on if that's all we wanted, or we can have navigate lights, interior lights. With the interior, if you just put this on once you get like a red light. If you give it a flick you get the white light. So just at night, if you put it on first, you get a red light. I've not been out at night, I haven't used the boat at night, but I did have ideas that maybe I'd do a sleepover one time. Haven't got around to that yet. The other things that I've put on here are a double USB socket, and I use that to power the iPad when that's here, and to do a phone charge if necessary. On this side I've got the old car type socket, you know, they used to call them cigarette lighters, cigar lighters if you were really posh, but I have that there because my VHF portable radio charges from that type of plug, and also my handheld light uses one of those plugs as well. I also have a voltmeter. I've not fitted solar power or anything like that. I don't think I need that. I'm not on a mooring. I don't have bilge pumps that are constantly going on and off and draining the battery. I just trail the boat, put it in the water. I might be on a pontoon for two weeks or so when I'm down in Myla, but the day I'm using the boat daily, so the alternator on the outboard is charging things up all the time. I think in one of the videos about safety I did mention that should all this electrics die and we have a problem, I can use the hand cord and I can pull the engine to start it. I have tried it as well. The 20 horsepower 4-stroke does turn over quite easily with the pull cord, and we can get it started manually. When the outboard was fitted, the engineers really wanted to have those batteries very, very close to the outboard so that there was minimal power loss. But we've found that there isn't a problem by running the cables inside the gunnels here. The cabling for the outboard starter motor and that sort of thing, it's about £15 a metre. So you've got a positive and a negative going at the back there. So it wasn't cheap. There was a good sort of £100-ish of cabling that needed to actually go in the boat. But again, it was the high quality marine tinned cabling, so we wouldn't get a problem with it in the future. That was the idea. Just take out the last of these plastic screws. The front of the box should come off, and hopefully you can see the wiring inside. So I've got a main fuse box here, so the positive comes into this side, so all your positives are down here and your negatives are down this side. We've got everything labelled up as to where the cables go,
and you'll see even the red cables here have got felt tip marks on, and they just help me identify how these things go into the back of the unit here. So I'm just manually holding the camera so that you can actually see how we've wired this up inside, and tried to keep it as neat as possible, together with keeping everything nicely labelled so I know what's what. Here you'll see we've got everything fused up, either 10 amps 5s or 2, I think. We've got different size of fuses depending on what my load actually is. So as you can see, I've tried to keep everything in here as neat as possible. The cables themselves then exit through these holes in the back here, which are then secured to the conduit. These cables are all your navigation lights and things that go up onto the top of the boat. The other cable goes out the back, which is for the VHF radio. That goes out the second conduit that's going out there. So that's just inside the main fuse box. So I think that just helps to keep everything tidy and keeps everything out of saltwater environment. So we'll just secure this back on. I did mention that I got navigation lights, and I tend to use those in bad weather or if there's any light fog or fog. I don't really intend to go out at night, but it's very, very comforting to know that you have at least got the minimum requirements for an under 12 metre vessel, which is an all-round white and a port and starboard. I've wired this so that you can just use the top all-round white as an anchor light should you need to. In terms of parts, the grey box just came from one of your high street electrical suppliers, IP66 box. This one is probably about 30 centimetres by about 20 centimetres, possibly about 10 centimetres deep, but you can figure out exactly what size you need. I put some stainless steel brackets on just to mount it, make it firm here. The actual front panel switch, that came from one of the online chandleries. When you buy the switch, it comes with all the different stickers and you can customize things as you want. The two switches here also came from one of the online marine shops. They're both waterproof, and I don't believe them. They're just little rubber covers that go on the top. So try to keep those closed when I'm out at sea. But obviously if you're running the iPad, you've got one of these exposed, so I don't know how long that is going to actually last. So time will tell with that. Everything else has been in here now for about 4 years and I've not had any bother with it. So fingers crossed I'm not going to get any bother. The battery seems to have kept up with any power needs we've had. I've always had plenty of battery power left, which has been good. So that's my 12 volt system. If you are going to install one, I would suggest go for that tinned marine cable. If you're going to do the job, you might as well do it once and do it well. I like things really neat. It may not bother you. You may not just go along with some zip ties, or you may have some panels that you can hide everything behind. But when you've got a little open boat like this, the conduit really makes things look a lot tidier. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tour of the 12 volt system. I've enjoyed doing another video in the garage. I would rather be out fishing, but that's not just happening at the minute. So there we go, the 12 volt system. If you've got any questions, please do put them in the comments. If there are other parts of the boat that you want me to explain and tell you about, again, put those in the comments too. If you haven't seen the first video that I did where somebody asked about this, it was called the boat safety kit, and I'm trying to raise some money for the RNLI. So if you haven't watched it, please go and have a look at it. If you want to see other videos about the boat, the Orkney Coastliner, or just, you know, a small fishing boat, could be any small fishing boat, do have a look at the playlist that I've put up. And I think I'm on to about the 9th video now, just about the boat. So that's enough from me for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please give it a like if you want, and do put some comments in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.